Welcome to Arkansas Wildlife. Trout fishing is a huge part of Arkansas's fishing landscape, and this week we're going to kick things off with a trip to the White River to do a little fly fishing. We didn't catch a lot of big ones, but the action is fast and furious. While most fly fishermen practice catch and release, fishery scientists are learning that keeping some fish can actually be a good thing for the long-term health of the resource. We're gonna keep a few fish this week and head over to see our friends at Flyway Brewing in North Little Rock and try out their smoked trout nachos. But first, we're headed out on a trout fishing trip on the Little Red River with Tommy Smith, David Basil, and RJ Hawk, the guys from the show with no name on 103.7 The Buzz. All that and this week's winner of an Arkansas hunting and fishing license right after this break.
Arkansas Wildlife is brought to you in part by Academy Sports and Outdoors. For all, for less.
(433-1037) is the number if you want to ask Trey a question today. RJ, myself, and Tommy were on the Little Red, right?
That's right.
The Little White.
The Little Red.
Little Red, and yeah, we were catching a ton of fish.
For the past few years, every Wednesday morning for me starts off down at Signal Media in Little Rock at the studios of 103.7 The Buzz with the guys from the show with no name. I answer questions about the great outdoors, take live calls.
Here's a question from Cole Wallace. Hey Trey, can you give me some direction on how I can get some help with out-of-state hunters poaching on my land during duck and goose season?
You've got Tommy Smith, the outlaw, a legend in Little Rock radio for many years, David Basil, former Razorback, Roger Scott, and their producer, RJ Hawk. Now, one thing about the crew up there on the show with no name, outside of RJ, who does like to do some hunting and fishing, they don't really know much about the great outdoors. So I've been on them for the last few years to get out and enjoy the natural state for no other reason to give us something to talk about on the show on Wednesday mornings when we don't have a lot of calls.
On that trip, Basil, every house that he saw, he's like, I wonder how much that house cost.
It was kind of like herding cats with their conflicting schedules and whatnot, but I finally got the guys all pinned down, with the exception of Roger, who had a scheduling conflict, that we got RJ, Tommy, and David out on the Little Red River to go trout fishing with our friends from Sore Lip 'em All Guide Service, Lowell Myers, and Jeff Smith.
Here's the thing, Lowell, I've got to get at least one fish today because after deer season and stuff, I hear it all year long. So, I mean, I don't give a damn if you've got a fish hanging out in the live well or something. I don't care at this point.
A lot of trash talking going on in the boats as we were getting ready to fish. You know, David Basil grew up on the Gulf Coast, Panama City Beach, Florida, and used to go by the name Speck Catcher when he had a CB radio in his car. So he kind of felt like he was going to catch a lot of fish. Of course, RJ, who fishes more often than anybody else, thought he was going to be the great one. And now Tommy was a different story. Tommy was convinced that he would be a jinx and informed me that he was fish repellent. And the last time he went out with some guys fishing, nobody caught fish. RJ Hawk and David Basil set out with my main cameraman and associate producer Scotty Wyatt, and in the boat with guide Lowell Myers. And then I went out in the boat with Tommy Smith and Jeff Smith, the founder of the Trout Magnet. Jeff is the inventor of that lure, which Field & Stream dubbed one of the top 10 baits of all time. And there's a reason for that. It is really a foolproof system for catching trout. And we needed that on this particular day.
There he is. Oh! There he is. Get him. Oh! There he is, Bass. Get him. Oh! Howdy. Hold on just a second, Bass. Bump it again. There he is. Get him. Oh! 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 There he was. He might come back straight to front and back. There he is.
Oh, wow.
It took Tommy a minute to sort of get the hang of casting with the spinning rod, but once he did, man, he called himself fish repellent, but that was not the case. I'm going to tell you, my man Tommy was getting on the rainbow trout. Meanwhile, in the other boat, Basil and RJ are putting the beating on the fish.
There he is. Get him. Get him. Oh, you got him.
It was like one right after another, and of course, that only intensified the trash talk.
If you can see down there, Tommy, Trey Reed, and Jeff. Tommy's got one right there. Is it?
Man, it was a great day out on the water, a good time with guys that I knew were going to be a lot of fun. I think Jeff Smith came up with a good sort of rundown after the trip. The big fish went to Tommy Smith. The most fish award went to David Basil, and the best dressed angler award, Mr. RJ Hawk. Spending time on the water is always fun.
There we go. Little red. Woo!
With this group of guys, it was even better. And I always enjoy reintroducing or reacquainting people with fishing that may not have been out in a long time, or in the case of Tommy, somebody who just doesn't fish that often. Very rewarding experience and a great day in the Arkansas outdoors. We're headed out on the White River below Bull Shoals Dam. We put in at the historic Cotter Bridge right there below the bridge, and we're fishing with Christopher Bolden, an old friend of mine who specializes in guiding fly fishermen on the White River. When folks think about fly fishing, a lot of times, you know, the image that comes to mind is a guy and his waders, you know, up to his knees or thighs in the water and wading and casting. But this was a little bit different. We were fly fishing out of a boat. That allows you to do some different things. Obviously, mobility is a big thing. You can move around to different parts of the river. You can drift through an area, and, you know, if it's productive, crank up the motor, run back through, and drift back through it again. On this day, they were running a couple of units out of Bull Shoals Dam, so the water was moving pretty quickly. The advantage of going out with a guide is he knows how to play that water and find the best spots where, you know, certain levels of flow will work in your favor. It didn't take long at all to get on some fish. It was one of those days that you really like being on the White River. A lot of fish, a lot of action, some good fish, and good numbers too.
There he is.
That's the way to start the day. I like that. Nice, healthy trout, not just giants, but not babies either. I've known Christopher for many years. We've fished together. We've hung out, listened to music together. Both big fans of Robert Earl Keen, and so, you know, being in the boat with somebody that is a great guide, but also a good friend that can give you some pointers and, you know, make you a better angler. That's always a great day.
Just want to kind of make a downstream angle cast.
All right. We tried several spots on the river. You know, we fished right there below the Cotter Bridge quite a bit. Went a little bit farther down to Rim Shoals, a catch and release area that's very popular. Found some bigger fish down there. Didn't necessarily catch all of them that we saw, but had some opportunities to catch some big fish, and that's always exciting as well. One of the keys to fly fishing that I'm sure even if you're not a fly fisherman you've heard is the phrase matching the hatch. And what that means is basically tailoring your presentation, the fly that you tie on the end of your leader or your tippet to match what's happening naturally in that particular system. This was right in the middle of the caddis hatch, and we started noticing caddis coming up off the water just all around us. I mean, you could just look out across the water through that sort of haze that's reflected from the sun off the water and just see the bugs everywhere. And so Christopher suggested that we maybe tie on some dry flies and see how that went.
Yep. They're still there. Go.
It doesn't matter what you're fishing for, bass, brim, catfish, crappie, or trout. When you feel that fish on the other end of the line, there's nothing like it. But especially fly fishing.
That was great.
That connection to the fish is magnified, is how I would describe it.
You fell for the little dry fly. Well, easy, buddy.
Among fly fishermen, dry fly fishing, when you have that opportunity to catch fish, it's like topwater bass fishing. Man, there is really nothing quite like it. Being up in the Ozarks on the White River is always a lot of fun, but sharing the day with great guides like we had that day and getting to do something that I love, like fly fishing. I used to do a lot more fly fishing than I've done in recent years. I'm sort of slowly getting back into it, but it was just a lot of fun. And man, you know, we were catching fish just left and right all day long in a variety of different ways. And man, just what a day. What a great day to be on the White River in the Arkansas Ozarks, catching an incredible fish like we did that day. We're at Flyway Brewing Company today. I'm with Jess McMullen. He is one of the co-founders and co-owners of Flyway Brewing. Jess, I see we've got the charcoal going on the PK grill. Tell us what we're going to have today.
We're going to make some smoked trout nachos.
All right, smoked trout nachos.
Mm-hmm.
They actually serve these on the menu here. We're going to take you through the process today, show you how you can do it real easily right at home.
All right. This is Dylan Graves, our kitchen manager here at Flyway, and he has a rainbow trout fillet. And what we do is we use a dry brine of brown sugar, kosher salt, and some other spices, and we put it on the fish for about 8 to 12 hours and let it set up. And it's really important after that, before you put it on the grill, that you rinse it really, really, really well, or it'll be way too salty. So you rinse it and then you let it dry either in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 hours, or you can put it in front of a box fan and it'll cut that time down to about an hour before you put it on the grill. It's really important to set your grill up for indirect fire so that the fish is not getting direct heat. And you can grill it anywhere between 150 to 250 degrees. And get your grill shut quickly so that the fish catches smoke. So the trout's been on the grill for about an hour, just enough time for us to grab a blue wing berry wheat from Flyway, and we'll take a look at it. So it looks pretty nice. It's starting to get some color. The fish will take anywhere between 2 to 4 hours depending on the temperature of your grill. The PK grill's at about 200 degrees right now, so we would probably take it off at about 2 hours. optimal temperatures is probably about 150 degrees for 4 hours. So we're gonna go ahead and take this off. We've got some trout that's already smoked in the kitchen and going to make some nachos.
All right, our first process of making our trout nachos is making our twist on an old classic of an Arkansas cheese dip. So first we're gonna start, just use a couple Roma tomatoes, a half of a poblano, a half of a medium onion, and just a really nice handful of cilantro. We're also gonna use some garlic powder and some white pepper. And for the cheese, we're gonna use 12 ounces of Velveeta. It's very easy to melt, so it's the best kind of cheese to use for this. Since we got all of our vegetables chopped, all we're gonna do, we're just gonna saute it up in some vegetable oil on a skillet. So we're just gonna add the cheese. So now I'm gonna add our free-range brown ale. Just a small half-ounce ladle, just about a teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of white pepper. So now I'm gonna add the sauteed vegetables to our cheese mixture that we have boiling. And just give it a really good stir, get everything mixed. Then you're gonna wait about 5 minutes and then it should be completely melted and easily spreadable. And then whenever you're cutting your trout, you just wanna make sure and cut it into bite-sized pieces. So now we're gonna add cilantro to our cheese dip mixture. Just a nice pinch. Actually, a couple pinches.
So now we're gonna build our nachos. And Dylan's gonna put a nice spread of the cheese dip as the base on the tostadas. And then we're gonna add a handful of Monterey Jack cheese on top of the base. And then we put a piece of trout on 4 different places of the nachos. So we're building individual nachos. Alrighty, and the last thing we do is sprinkle a little bit of lemon pepper on top. All right, and depending on your oven, the nachos can go in under a broiler or just on a preheated bake cycle. And you just want to keep an eye on them. It's probably only about a 5-minute. It's just enough to melt the cheese. All right, so our nachos are all ready. They've melted really well. They're browned up. So Dylan's gonna pull them off with a knife and cut them to order and put them on the tray. So it's key to put the cheese dip on the bottom to spread it on the chip first, because what that does is it softens up the chip just enough. Not only is it for flavor, but it's also to allow us to cut the chips into 4s like this. So when we plate them up, each order gets 12 individual nachos. When you're doing it at home, you can leave them as a whole nacho if you like. We serve our nachos with Texas caviar, which is a black-eyed pea salsa. And we make Flyway firecrackers, which are spicy carrots, spicy pickled carrots, and then we also have pickled okra. It's as simple as that, and we're ready to eat.
Smoked trout nachos from Flyway Brewing Company, North Little Rock. Jess, Dylan, thank you all so much for cooking these up. I'm gonna go ahead and try one of these now and make sure it's fit to eat. I didn't know you can make trout taste so good. Thanks, guys. Hey, come get some at Flyway, or better yet, now you know how to make them at home.
That's it for this week's episode of Arkansas Wildlife TV. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel where you can catch up on all the past episodes or watch your favorite episode again and again. Arkansas Wildlife presents the Watch and Win Giveaway. During each episode of Arkansas Wildlife, we'll give away an Arkansas resident hunting and fishing license. At the end of this season, we'll be giving away $500 worth of fishing gear with everything you need for outdoor adventures on Arkansas lakes and streams. It's all provided by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Visit the Arkansas Wildlife webpage at arkansaswildlife.com and click on the Watch and Win icon to enter. This week's winner is Carol Hewson from Little Rock. Congratulations and thanks for watching.